Hello and welcome to the Michael Mama Show. I'm your host. We are on home of the Temple in the mountains of western North Carolina. Um, I had a nice, beautiful experience. Really, there was this guy who came to the temple. I was there. I think it was it was right after Arti, so it was like 7 at night or something. And he approached me, and it was a beautiful conversation. Really, he was saying that he's from a Brahman family, but he doesn't know that much about Veda, and he was just very sincere. Uh, I posted a little. Well, I'll even read it to you. I said I was recently approached at the temple by a very kind and respectful young Brahmin gentleman. He spoke of his longing for true knowledge. This touched my heart and compelled me to reflect deeply. I have been a teacher my entire adult life. I have learned a great deal about people and how they receive or reject knowledge. Knowledge with a capital K there. The road of the teacher of deep knowledge is long and often leads to heartbreak. How can a student remain steadfast along the path? Where to begin such a limitless journey? What are the pitfalls along the way? Where and why along the way do so many spin out on tangents? The simple answer is that a person's karma brings them to the knowledge, and their karma takes them away. This podcast is one more attempt to help. It is humbly dedicated to all sincere seekers. Perhaps it would be the first of an unending series, or perhaps it's just another in a lifelong unending series. So we'll see. So I would say if you like this podcast and you want it to become a series, uh, go to michaelmamas.net and you'll see where you can make a comment. Click it, make a comment. You can leave. I have no problem at all if you just make it anonymous. We won't reveal any, email addresses or anything like that. So feel free, and if you're interested in having me continue with this series, we'd be happy to do so, but it's going to depend on you guys and how much interest there seems to be. So what would I say? That's what this podcast is going to be about. What would be the first words I would say? I'd say number one, the most important part of Vedic knowledge isn't the intellectual understanding. Number one is it's the experience. Now, intellectual knowledge, understanding has its role. It gets deep right away. But within the structure of the transcendent lies the Veda. And so learning about it enlivens that structure in your own awareness. But if it's just an intellectual structure that you create in your mind, or that gets created in your mind, that can actually be a thing that kind of freezes your progress. And you end up white knuckling onto a particular level of understanding, and you decide that's truth. And so the ability to go deeper even is reduced. That's the stuff that religious fanaticism is made out of in all religions, in all spiritual pursuits. So the thing is, though, there's an underlying basis to existence. It's like the foundation. In the West, they call it the unified field. In the Vedic literature, it's referred to as Chaitanya, the pure transcendent, the pure absolute, that field of no thingness. And it's referred to as a field of pure consciousness. And it's interesting that some modern physicists who are really into unified field theories and all that, there was one guy in Berkeley who's a PhD in physics, and he even said the more I study the unified field, the more I'm beginning to believe it's consciousness. So that's all the qualities of consciousness, which is interesting because that's what the ancient seers have been saying for thousands of years. So the most important part of your spiritual growth is to awaken to that level. And the way we do that is the most effective way to do that is through meditation. But not all meditations. There are meditations that program the mind. There are meditations that control the mind or teach you to keep fixity of focus, all sorts of different meditations. There are meditations that just stir emotional experiences of love and things like that. And that, I mean, what's wrong with love? Nothing, but that's not the most powerful and the most effective way to facilitate spiritual growth. So what you want is a meditation whereby the awareness transcends. And the beauty is that everything just naturally gravitates back to oneness. We know that from our daily experience. You know, if you're walking down the mall and some people in front of you are speaking a foreign language you don't understand, it's just natural to say, boy, wouldn't it be cool to know that language, know what they're saying? Or if you pick up a guitar, you want to become one with the language, you know, one with everything. And you pick up a guitar. If you can't play it, it's just natural to say, gee, I'd love to be able to just play this thing, you know, become one with that guitar. So there's a natural tendency. That's what love is. When you fall in love with somebody, you feel that oneness with them. You feel that connection, and it's very fulfilling. There's a natural tendency, just like water that runs down a mountain stream, just naturally it returns to the unbounded ocean of oneness from where it came. It evaporates, it goes up in the clouds, rains, falls down the mountaintop, returns down the stream. So the path, you see, back to wholeness is kind of like water running down a mountain stream. And it can hit eddy currents, or it can flow quickly. It can just go adrift. And so to facilitate the path of spiritual growth is to keep it from getting stuck in eddy currents and helping it move forward. And why do we do that? Because there's a natural tendency to experience the fulfillment of oneness, of unification, of unity. And we all feel that inside of us. We all have longing. We all have desires. And if you look at the root of those desires, it's because there's a longing to become one. People desire a bowl of ice cream because they experience a communion with the ice cream, you know? So there's a aspect of Vedic knowledge, which is called the Brahma Sutra. In Sanskrit, it's actually Brahma Sutra, oftentimes because there are 554 sutras. Sometimes they don't call it Brahma Sutra, they call it the Brahma Sutras, plural. But the first Brahma Sutra actually addresses all this just so beautifully in a nutshell. And that's the thing about the Brahma Sutras, is they're so full of knowledge and they're so deep in their expression of the understanding of the very nature of existence. It's all contained in the Brahma Sutras, you know. But it's so deep that some people even say that until you're highly evolved, you can't understand the Brahma Sutras. Well, that's true, and it's not. Because in one sense, until you're highly evolved, you don't really understand anything. And as you evolve, your understanding goes deeper and deeper. But I've talked about in the past about how things parallel. There's, I call it a reality continuum. For example, love on one level is just a biochemical function. On another level, it's an emotional experience. On a deeper level, it's that union of separation. You see that experience of one becomes closer and closer and you fall in love like that. So everything is like that. Everything is, I call it a transgradient reality continuum. And so the Brahma Sutras are like that. They can be picked up on all different levels. And depending on an individual's level of consciousness, you see, they can understand it on a different level, on a more superficial level or a more profound level. And all life is like that. But the very first sutra of Brahma Sutras, the Tato Brahma jignasa. And what that means is, and it's very interesting, it says, now the desire to know Brahman. Brahman is that wholeness value, okay? The totality. So it says now. Now is a very interesting word in this context, because in one sense, now means, okay, right now. But in another sense, it's almost kind of can be looked at sort of that eternal now, I think that the Zen Buddhists might allude to, I don't know. But the point is that now the desire to know Brahman is just stating that there's that eternal gravitational pull, that longing, that desire to know, and know in the deepest sense, you see, not just intellectually know all about, but actually truly know with a capital K, which means to become one with. Knowing all about is one thing. Actually becoming is quite another. That's why in the whole Vedic tradition, a lot of times the emphasis is put when it comes to like Vedic chants, more on the experience of listening to the chants and how they affect the physiology. Why? Because in the depth of your being, you are one with everything. What is the Veda? The Veda is this the self-interacting dynamic that emerges out of that field of oneness. It emerges out of that field of oneness and bubbles up into the sounds of nature. The sounds of nature, the Veda. You see? And so by listening to the Vedic chants, because we are also everyone is one with that transcendental level. That's the idea. I am that, thou art that, all of this is nothing but that. So if you listen to those Vedic chants, you can awaken your awareness of that place inside that lies deep within all of us. That's the source of all knowledge, the source of everything. And so it's in the listening, you see? And that's why Vedic chants more emphasis is put on listening than on analyzing and intellectually analyzing. Because if for no other reason, that if you analyze it and figure it out and then you get it, I call that the I get it syndrome, that's echoes of truth. You pick it up on the level that you can based on your current level of consciousness. And the echoes of truth, perceived as truth, they hold truth at bay. They hold truth at a distance, you see? So, the first thing I would say then, if you're really sincere about, and I don't care what level really you're at, but even for the total beginner or the advanced spiritually oriented individual, the number one thing to do is to learn a meditation by which you transcend. And there's an ancient meditation. It's been practiced for thousands of years. And if you go to YouTube and type in my name, Michael Mamas, and go to the YouTube channel, the first two videos that come up, I'm teaching the meditations free. Learn the meditation, do it regularly, because then what's happening is you're given the experience of the transcendent. And as the more you meditate, the more you evolve, the clearer that experience becomes. No matter how far along the path you are, you will have times when you meditate where you have a lot of thoughts, there's been activity, a lot of distractions, maybe you're tired, who knows. And so we don't judge our meditations is the point. Because even in a time like that, what's happening is that there's purification going on. And the whole thing is about purification. As we purify the physiology through proper meditation, we evolve. And meditation then accelerates our evolution. So we're just not like a boat cast adrift in the ocean, So learn the meditation, please. It's free, okay? there's a, you can see this too. There's a seven-headed serpent. Like even if you look at some pictures of Lord Vishnu, there the seven-headed serpents. Uh, that has a lot of different meanings, but one of the meanings is that there are different levels of consciousness. Oftentimes it's said there are 7 levels of consciousness: waking, sleeping, dreaming, like that, cosmic consciousness, like that. And so each of those heads, if you will, have a different level of understanding of that knowledge of life and existence. Okay? So that's why we don't want to cling to one, because it'll just keep us stuck, you know? Anything more, Scotty? Any comments or any questions that come up in your mind that may
No,
have?
that's all good. We've been actually meditating as the family here. We really started with the kids now. That's nice.
Meditating by yourself is great, and if that's what you're doing, fantastic. But Scotty, I imagine you noticed that meditating with two people together or more, the more the
Oh yeah,
better, the more powerful the experience. And there's a physiological reality to that. Consciousness is a field, you see, and the more people that are, if you will, enlivening the awareness of that level of pure consciousness, uh, the more powerful it becomes. But whoever you are, do the meditation, do it twice a day. If you miss a meditation, there was a nice quote I heard once that somebody was saying that, oh, I missed a meditation, or I'm missing my meditations. I'm not doing them regularly, and I feel so guilty. And it was actually Maharshi that responded. He said, well, now you have 2 problems. First problem was you're missing meditations. The second problem is you're feeling guilt. You can't do anything about the meditations that you missed, but you can do something about the guilt. Just let it go. So that's not an excuse. It's just an opportunity to say, okay, from now on, I'm going to try to be more regular with my meditations, but let go of the guilt. And particularly in the West, it's sort of a guilt-ridden culture, isn't it, Scotty?
yeah,
A lot of, I mean, it's almost kind of like the Victorian sort of mentality, residual. So meditate, and then as if you guys want me to, and we continue with this series, there's so much knowledge, and it needs to unfold in the proper sequence, and that's important, because otherwise it becomes like a hodgepodge of this aspect of Veda, that aspect of Veda, this knowledge, that knowledge, and it's not unfolded in a sequence that actually facilitates growth. And also be very careful with respect to even the mantras you use. Mantras are like medicine. You could make the analogy, and you would never walk into a pharmacy and say, "Oh, well, this is all medicine. I'm going to eat one of each." And it's the same with mantras. Be very careful what mantras you use, and for now, for sure, uh, uh, just learn the meditation as taught on my YouTube channel. Do that, and then we can deal. I mean, we could deal with mantras for a long time, but let's stick with this now. And really, no matter who you are, there are a lot of different mantras. Some of them are universal mantras, and the mantra that you will learn as the knowledge unfolds is a universal mantra. Anybody can do it, and but it acts like an engine that facilitates our ability to transcend and bring our awareness into the absolute. You see. Um, what else do I want to say about all this? On the spiritual path, sometimes people may look at it and say, well, okay, I just heard this podcast from Michael, and but where's the practical application? I mean, can't he give me some tool to make my life better today? And there are things, I'm sure there are things in this podcast even that we touched upon, like the thing about guilt, for example. Uh, but the main thrust, the main orientation needs to be uh, purifying the physiology, enlivening the physiology and the awareness so it becomes awake to that ocean of being, that divinity that dwells at the depth of your being. It's the source of all knowledge. And so it gets to the point where no matter what you're doing, because you've already captured the source, the fort. There's an analogy, they say capture the fort. You can spend your life, I don't know, trying to capture the gold mine or the silver mine over there or the diamond mine over there, and make some progress. But if you capture the fort at the top of the mountain, then you have all of that. And what we're doing here then is very fundamental to mastery of life in whatever aspect of life you're talking about. And so you get to the point where you understand everything. And what does that mean, understand? Doesn't mean overstand. It doesn't mean lord over, oh, I get that. I understand this. I've memorized the Veda and I analyzed it to pieces, and so I get it. Uh, the word is understanding. There's a humility built right into the word, Uh, and that's what we're cultivating, that level of existence that stands underlies, upholds all of life, all of existence, everything, the totality. Aham Brahmasmi, I am the totality, like that. And so that's what we're cultivating. That's what life really, when you think about it, that's what life is all about. And that wonderful young gentleman that came to me, I mean, he so sincerely and humbly articulated his desire. He could feel it. You see, he could feel it in his being. He wanted knowledge, but he wanted fulfillment. And the true fulfillment is found in awakening to that grandeur that dwells within. That's what they say. The kingdom of heaven dwells within. So it's a journey. It's a path. And humility is involved. This is kind of tangential. Forgive me, but I've noticed it more actually in Western cultures, perhaps even in the United States than other countries. But I remember I was interviewed by this woman once for a magazine. And she sat down, she said, well, first of all, I don't know anything about this stuff. She said, but, and I'm not really into it at all. But, I was told by the editor or whatever to come here and interview you. So here I am. And so fine, I talked and I explained some things. And a couple months later, she came back on her own volition to do another interview. And she said, oh, I read this book about Seth, some channel. And I'm just so inspired by it all. It was our conversation that inspired me to look into it. And now I understand it, and it's so critical. I couldn't get a word in edgewise. She wanted to tell me about all the knowledge that she had gained from this channeling book. And I've had people who do similar things, that they'll read a book or two, they'll decide they understand Vedanta, and then the next thing you know, they decide they're enlightened master, they're a bodhisattva, they're this, they're that, they're a reincarnation of Lord Vishnu, what have you. And I must say, you don't see that in India, for example. There's more humility. There's a greater understanding there. And so in the path, I would just encourage you, remain humble. No matter how much you know, there's so much more. I mean, we're talking about the totality of all knowledge, you know? And what we're doing in this course then is we're going to be giving you the knowledge necessary to facilitate your own evolution. It's not about, memorizing all the Veda and learning more and more about this and that. It's about picking and choosing those things in your spiritual growth, your evolution. And that's critical. The other thing I'd like to mention, perhaps here in closing, is the idea of be careful where you put your attention. There's the Veda. That's the underlying essence, the underlying structure of existence. It's all birthed right out of the transcendental value, the unified field. It's nature. And you could compare that to that's the physics of Vedic knowledge, spiritual knowledge. But then, just like in physics, there's a couple of branches there, right? There's engineering, where you take that knowledge and you create a technology, implementing that knowledge, and you can build airplanes and cell phones and everything else. But then there's also, and that's called right-handed tantra. There's also left-handed tantra, and what that is like hot wiring a car so you can steal it, or you don't have a fuse, and the fuse blew in the basement, and all the lights went on in the house. So you take a piece of aluminum foil and shove it in there. You can instant results, dramatic results, but you can burn the house down. Left-handed tantra is very prevalent, and it's also very alluring. Proper evolution, real evolution, can take time. Left-handed tantra, you can get dramatic results quickly, so people are allured by it and think it's great. One example, there are techniques that just rip open the sixth chakra, the third eye. So all of a sudden, all this light's flooding in. People say, "Oh, I see light. Oh my gosh, I'm enlightened." Be very careful. So much is out there, and I've seen wonderful people that have really been on the path and dedicated, and I've even warned them about left-handed tantra, and they laugh. How could anybody be so stupid? But it's almost like heroin. Once you let somebody give you that first hit of heroin, you can be gone, and I've seen it. So be discerning, be careful. Don't do what you think might be wrong. And if you even think it's wrong, even if you think it might be wrong, just don't do it. That's why they call it the razor's edge. Spiritual path, it's like traversing the razor's edge. You can fall either way. And so I really listen to the Vedic pundits. These are people that have had that knowledge from childhood. They're custodians of the knowledge. It's been passed down through tradition for thousands of years. They're highly, highly educated, starting at age 5, And I would not ever teach anything that I felt was not consistent with that purity of the Vedic knowledge. And I have no ego around it. I mean, if I don't know something, I'll tell you I don't know. I have no problem with that at all. Maybe that's even a great asset in another sense. The only true knowing is knowing that you know nothing. Because the absolute is a field of no thingness, pure consciousness, pure isness. It's not about things. It's not about facts. Okay, anything else, Scotty?
No, that was great.
I think it's a good start. And please, if you're really interested in continuing with this, let me know. And if I hear from enough people, I'll continue with the series. But that's one thing about podcasts as opposed to lecturing to groups, which I'm more accustomed to. With podcasts, you can't see people's faces. You don't see their expression. You don't really know how they're receiving it or what they're interested in and what they're not. And so your feedback is much appreciated. And I'll just say one last thing in closing. If you don't mind, please go to srisomeshwara.org. SRISOMESVARA, srisomeshwara.org, O-R-G. Right at the top, you'll see something that says select page. You go over to the right, you see the 3 bars, click it, and in there you can donate. And there are different things you can donate to at different levels, take your pick. But we would really appreciate your support. It doesn't go to me, it goes to the Sri Someshwara Temple. So please consider doing that. And you'll get the benefits of sponsoring pujas, sponsoring havans, like that. Okay, well, thanks for listening, and we'll talk with you again next week. So goodbye for now.